These statements have not been approved by the Food and Drug Administration. The product discussed here is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Welcome to Science Talks with Isagenix, where different scientists, nutritionists, researchers, and experts break down the science behind Isagenix products and nutrition and health in general. My name is Taylor Malham. I'm an Isagenix nutritionist and on the product education team. And today we are going to be talking about a really hot topic in the media, health space, and even something we talk about a lot here at Isagenix, which are toxins. We all now know that toxins have some sort of negative connotation and negative impact on our health, but for many of us, I think that's really like all we know about them. So to help shed some light on all things toxins, we brought in the one and only Dr. Gumpricht. He is a Ph.D. in nutrition from Penn State, and here at Isagenix, he is our Director of Research and Science, overseeing all Isagenix partnerships with researchers, laboratories, and universities, carrying out all of our science, including our clinical research, ingredient selection, formulations, and finished products. So he is all things science here at Isagenix. Welcome, Dr. G.
Thank you, Taylor. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
Okay, I'm sensing a little sarcasm there.
Absolutely not.
Just kidding. Well, let's get right into this topic. So today we are talking about toxins. If you had to answer the question, what are toxins, how would you start?
Well, that's a great question to start with, Taylor. So I'm going to use an all-encompassing definition of toxins, okay? So for our use, I'm going to characterize toxins as any substance that can damage our key essential molecules in our bodies, right? Our DNA that holds our genetic material, our fats, our proteins, okay? And so this kind of damage, if unabated, if not reduced, if not minimized, if not eliminated, can result in, I will euphemistically call it, poor health outcomes. Okay, so the goal is to reduce exposure as much as possible to toxins, as well as to enhance elimination and metabolism of these toxins. Now, toxins can be found in our environment, in our food, in our water, and in our air that we breathe. And these toxins include heavy metals such as cadmium, lead, mercury. They also include airborne toxins, PCBs, ozone, particulate matter. They also include pesticides, drugs, medications. And we also get toxins from our foods, as I mentioned. Common dietary toxins include your favorite dietary toxin, Taylor, alcohol, as well as toxins from cooking foods, such as frying foods, you get acrylamide, or grilling meats, you'll get certain toxic compounds generated. And then finally, toxins can be produced internally by our own cells intentionally. Okay, so imagine you're exposed to bacteria and viruses, right? Certainly not unheard of in today's age. The normal physiological response to that exposure of these toxins from bacteria and viruses is for our white blood cells to intentionally produce free radicals and hydrogen peroxide. Okay, that's how we get rid of bacteria and viruses in that context. So even though those free radicals and hydrogen peroxide are required for protecting us, if they produce too much and in wrong places, they can be toxic to our cells, of course, and our key essential molecules. And I'll leave you with one other key characteristic of most toxins that we're exposed to, Taylor, and that is that most toxins are fat soluble. Okay, so they end up stored in our fat tissue and they're harder to eliminate and metabolize. And this has really important ramifications for our overall fat stores in our body, as well as the loss of fat during weight loss. So those are key dietary ramifications of the toxins in our fat.
And so question, so you mentioned all these different ways that we're exposed to toxins, through the air, through the soil, through all these different things. Would you say it's possible to avoid toxin exposure completely?
No, it is absolutely not possible to avoid. Perhaps Michael Jackson tried it when he was in his little oxygen chamber way back 20 years ago before your time, Taylor. But every time you breathe in, you're breathing in toxins, okay, especially in Western cultures in particular. So no, you cannot avoid toxins. So the best thing to do is to reduce exposure and to maximize elimination, metabolism, detoxification, obviously. So
that's really interesting because I feel like I feel like health conscious consumers take so many different steps to like limit toxin exposure. I just bought these new pans that are supposed to be, you know, the best pans you could cook with, all different things like that. But you're saying that even with those steps, I mean, we should still try and do those things, but we still are going to be exposed, therefore still need to know about them.
Absolutely.
Okay, got it. Okay, so how do we deal with these toxins that unfortunately we are being exposed to them?
Well, not surprisingly, all species have developed and evolved a tremendously complex and efficient system of detoxification, right? And for us mammals, us humans, we have systems, our major organ systems are detoxification systems. So those include, of course, the skin, which is our first barrier to many toxins, our lungs, obviously for the airborne toxins that we breathe in, kidneys, our immune system, our gastrointestinal system, again, exposed to dietary sources of toxins. And then finally, we have the most important organ for detoxification, of course, which is our liver, right? So in particular, the liver is the primary target for detoxification, and therefore it's the richest source of detoxification enzymes and proteins in the body.
And so you just named a bunch of different aspects of the body. So is that where most of the detoxification in the body occurs? So the liver, the skin and things like that would be more of a shield, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, the liver is by far the primary organ for detoxification. And so you will have toxins that are, of course, as I mentioned previously, that can be stored and will be stored in our fat tissue. But as well, you'll have toxins stored in our liver, which, as you can imagine, would do a lot of damage over long periods of time.
So it sounds like our body's set up to handle these toxins, right?
Yes.
So if our body has the liver, all these different things set up, do we really need help with detoxification?
Well, of course, as I mentioned, those organs are really key for optimal detoxification, and they evolved to do a really good job, right? But of course, we're exposed to a lot varied types of toxins compared to our ancestors. Mm-hmm. And so what we think is you can help modulate and support your body's normal physiological detoxification system. So the liver and kidney and the skin, the lungs do a very good job for detoxification, but that doesn't mean you can't support those systems through a variety of lifestyle factors, and we'll talk about that in a moment.
So the elevated bombardment that we're getting, it lends the body to need just a little bit more support, right?
Yes, we could always get a little more support.
Perfect. Yes. Okay. So here at Isogenics, something we talk about often, or not often, but I've seen it in reading our Isogenics health articles. I'm sure you guys have seen it written in different places, is the term phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification. This is something that specifically came up a lot with the launch of Recharge NAD. Will you explain kind of what does this mean?
Sure. And this actually gets back to my background at Penn State. This is the exact kind of work I did in my thesis world and as a postdoc. So, as you mentioned, there are two major detoxification pathways that work in sequence, phase 1 and phase 2, right? The pathway that's most associated with phase 1 detoxification are a class of enzymes called cytochrome P450. And as you know, Taylor, cytochrome P450 comes from the fact that it has an absorbance maximum at 450 nanometers when it's combined with carbon monoxide, right? So there's good news and bad news about, that was a joke, by the way. There's good news and bad news about phase 1 detoxification. The good news is that this is a step whereby some toxins are made less toxic and more water soluble than the original toxin itself, right? So that's the first step, phase 1. And that makes them more easily detoxed by the phase 2 detoxification system. But the bad news is that sometimes phase 1 detoxification actually makes the toxin more toxic, if that makes sense, okay? And that's through a variety of chemical reactions, and we can't get into that here, of course. So whether phase 1 makes things better or worse, those molecules now go into phase 2, which is definitely a good thing. So during phase 2 detoxification, the toxins, again, are made more water soluble than they were previously, and that makes it easier to excrete in the urine. For those toxins that are still not water soluble enough, those will end up in the bile, and you can excrete them through the feces, of course. I should mention that one of the major reactions to phase 2 detoxification is combining that toxin with a molecule called glutathione, which many of our listeners have probably heard of.
Yep.
Right? So glutathione is composed of 3 amino acids, and glutathione happens to be the most abundant antioxidant in our cells. So again, the primary role of glutathione is to connect to these toxic metabolites coming through phase 2 detoxification, again, making them easier to excrete through the urine or the feces, depending on their solubility at that point.
So first of all, so phase 1 and phase 2 detoxification are both happening primarily in the liver, correct?
Yes, they can happen. They'll happen throughout the body, but the liver is the primary source for those reactions.
And
yes.
all the toxins that we're exposed to pretty much go through those 2 phases, right?
In general, but if it's
Generally.
airborne, then it doesn't necessarily have to go through the liver. It can go into the lungs, and it can be excreted out the lungs depending on the metabolism.
So would you say phase 2 is the more effective aspect of the detoxification?
Yes, they're both phases are required, but phase 2 really is for getting it out of the body.
Perfect. And then one thing I just want to say, you mentioned glutathione, and I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but our listeners probably know that because it's a natural component of whey protein, correct?
Yes.
Will you explain it?
Yes. So whey protein is rich, and all animal proteins are rich in an amino acid called cysteine, right? And cysteine is one of those 3 amino acids that make up glutathione. In fact, it's the most important one for actually making glutathione in our cells. So that's the link between whey protein and glutathione.
Yeah, so I messed that up.
Cysteine.
So whey protein helps enhance the body's production of glutathione.
Yes.
Okay, so now let's kind of just get into our products, because I know that we do a lot here at Isagenix to really help support our detoxification system. So will you kind of break down which of our products and ingredients are really designed to help our body do the detoxing better?
Sure. Well, not surprisingly, probably all of our products have some direct or indirect beneficial effect on detoxification, overall detoxification. So, but if you were to ask me to highlight some specific products of ours and how that might help modulate and support our detoxification, sure. So we could start with the shakes and bars, right? The Isagenix shakes and bars, as we just talked about, these are rich sources, at least certainly the whey protein components. Our whey-based shakes are rich sources of the amino acid cysteine, which helps produce glutathione in the body. Okay, that's one key thing. And for the plant-based shakes and bars, same kind of thing. You may not have quite as much cysteine, although we match as close as we can to the whey-based shakes. So you'll still get glutathione synthesis from those products. Our original detox support product, of course, is Cleanse for Life. And as you know, Taylor, we did do a cellular study way back when showing that Cleanse for Life actually increased detoxification enzymes and even genes in cell culture studies that we did back then. So that's another really key component of detox support from Isagenix. I also think about supplements like Cytoactives, okay, one of my favorite supplements, which has tocotrienols, which is a superior form of vitamin E for antioxidant protection. Resveratrol, of course, common in red wine. Vitamin D and coenzyme Q10 all work together as either good antioxidants or good supportive nutrients for detoxification overall, right? And then finally, and this is not one of the sexier products of ours, of course, but essentials, right? Our multivitamin, multimineral, because all of these detoxification proteins and enzymes that are required for a healthy detoxification system all require certain vitamins and certain minerals, okay? So you got to have optimal amount of intake of those vitamins and minerals. Again, these aren't as quite as sexy as other products or ingredients, but they are essential for detoxification. And then finally, of course, as we just launched a couple months ago, Recharge NAD.
Yep.
So Recharge NAD, of course, has, again, the tocotrienols, great antioxidant. NAD itself, which is required for some detox reactions, like the aforementioned metabolism of alcohol, it requires NAD. And then finally, Recharge has a special ingredient, broccoli seed extract, right? Very excited by this addition to the product, of course. And broccoli seed extract is a special case because broccoli seed extract provides the precursor to a molecule called sulforaphane, right, which our bodies can make. And sulforaphane is the most potent inducer of detoxification proteins, enzymes, and signaling that's been known from natural products, right? It's that potent. And there's several clinical studies that show that when you increase sulforaphane in the body, you have better outcome, you have better detoxification. So, we're really excited about having broccoli seed extract as part of Recharge NAD.
It's a really, really cool ingredient. And there's more, there's a whole article just on that ingredient on Isogenics Health, right?
Yes.
Really good. So all of our products, so shakes, bars, Cleanse for Life, Recharge NAD, Cytoactives Essentials, all providing really key components that help support the body's natural detoxification systems, correct?
That is correct.
And then beyond our products, is there anything else we could do to just support our body's detoxification system overall?
Absolutely, yes. So my bottom line would be this. Our bodies have great detoxification systems led by, again, the skin, the lungs, the GI tract, the kidneys, and of course, the liver. But we need to get them to keep working in unison in optimal levels, right? So for that, we want to support them, those systems, and the detoxification itself. And you support that by having overall healthy lifestyle responses, okay? So you want to have good nutrition, obviously. You want to have stress management. You want to have an active lifestyle, exercise as much, as for optimal benefits there. And you want the targeted nutritional support. So you put it all together, Isogenics provides you the tools to help support your normally very active, very beneficially functional detoxification system. But we're there, again, just to provide more support to optimize detoxification overall.
Well, perfect. Thank you, Dr. G. Thank you for being here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure as always.
And
Taylor.
sharing your knowledge. I hope our listeners, I hope it wasn't too overwhelming. I hope they got a good glance of what toxins are, so that when we're talking about them with our products, they kind of have a better understanding of what we're talking about, right?
Yep.
And I think it's an important point too, that the original point you said, kind of we are going to be exposed to toxins. It's okay. Our bodies can handle it, but there are certain things we can do to enhance those functions, correct?
Correct.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. And if you want to read more about how Isogenics supports detoxification, the science behind our products, or any of the products that Dr. G mentioned, or just hear more from Dr. G himself, head on over to isogenicshealth.net. Thank you for listening.
These statements have not been approved by the Food and Drug Administration. The product discussed here is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.